My first day at the care home was a dive into the unknown. I'd held jobs before, but never the night shift in a place like this. I pictured quiet hallways, helping residents to bed, maybe even reading a book. I was very wrong. The building was huge. I got there around 10 p.m., just as the day staff was leaving. Denise, the owner, met me at the front desk. She held a clipboard, her smile weary but kind. The kind you see on people who've worked long nights for ages. She quickly explained my duties, showed me the building's map, and pointed out residents needing special attention. A few need extra care, she said, looking through her papers. Mrs. Harding, for example, second floor, room, a sweet lady, but she sometimes gets mixed up at night, thinks her husband is still here, and Denise stopped, her eyes darting to the dark hallway behind her. Just make sure she's comfortable. I felt overwhelmed by all the information, but just nodded. Got it. Anything else? Denise paused, then shook her head. Not really. Just check on everyone every hour or so. You have the pager if anyone needs help. I took a deep breath and followed her to the back, where the main area split into two long, hushed hallways. The lights were low, and the whole place felt oddly still. It was too quiet for a building full of people. All I heard was the faint buzz of the lights above. By 11, most residents were in bed. The only sounds were a door creaking now and then, or soft mumbles from someone sleeping. I began my first round, walking the hall, stopping outside each room to listen. Mrs. Harding's room was near the end, her door slightly open. I saw her sitting in bed, facing the window, her back to me. I knocked gently. Mrs. Harding, how are you tonight? She didn't answer, just kept staring out the window. A moment later, she turned her head a little, enough for me to see her side profile. She looked far away, almost not fully present. Is everything okay? I asked, stepping inside. Do you need anything? She slowly shook her head. No, I'm fine. It's just, I thought I saw him. I paused, confused. Saw who? Mrs. Harding looked back at the window. My husband. He's been gone for years. But I thought I saw him right there by the tree. I looked where she pointed, but saw only the dark courtyard outline below. No one was there. I'm sure it was just a shadow, I said gently, trying to calm her. Sometimes the dark plays tricks. Mrs. Harding nodded, though she didn't look convinced. Maybe that's all it was. I stayed, chatting quietly, until she seemed more at ease. When I left, she was lying in bed, eyes closed but not yet asleep. The rest of the night passed without trouble, and by morning I was worn out. But Mrs. Harding's words stayed with me. The way she spoke, so sure she'd seen her husband. It wasn't just confusion, she truly believed it. My next shift began much the same. I did my checks, and all seemed normal, until around 1 in the morning. Walking the hall, I heard faint muffled voices from Mrs. Harding's room. At first, I thought she was talking to herself, which happens sometimes. But as I got closer, I realized there were two voices. One was hers, the other a low, soft one, though I couldn't understand the words. My heart pounded as I neared her door. Light from her lamp spilled into the hall. My hand hovered over the doorknob. Should I knock or just go in? Then I heard Mrs. Harding's voice again, louder now. Who are you talking to? She asked, sounding confused. A pause, then the low voice replied, still unclear. I pushed the door open, my pulse racing. Mrs. Harding sat up in bed, eyes wide with terror, staring at the far corner. No one else was there. Mrs. Harding, I said, stepping inside, trying to stay calm. Is everything all right? Her face was pale as she looked at me. "The man, he's in the corner. He's been watching me." I looked at the corner, my stomach tightening. It was empty, just a shadow from the lamp. "There's no one there," I said softly. "It's just a shadow. You're safe." Mrs. Harding shook her head, her gaze fixed on the corner. "No, he's there. I can see him. Why can't you?" I was speechless, frozen, unsure how to help her. Finally, I walked to the corner and waved my hand through the air, showing her it was empty. "See? No one." But Mrs. Harding wasn't convinced. She gripped her blanket tight. "He's still there," she whispered. I didn't argue. I just sat with her, talking gently, until she finally calmed and drifted to sleep. But as I left her room, a deep sense of dread settled over me that I couldn't shake. All that night, I kept hearing things, faint whispers, soft steps, even when no one was near. It felt like the whole building was alive with something unseen. By the time my shift ended, I was on edge. I rushed outside, thankful for the fresh air and the rising sun. But Mrs. Harding's experience haunted me. The way she'd stared at that empty corner, the terror in her voice, made me doubt everything I knew about the care home. I went back the next night, determined to push away the fear. But things only got worse. Around midnight, I heard it again, the low, muffled voice from Mrs. Harding's room. This time, I didn't hesitate. I ran down the hallway. Her door was wide open. Mrs. Harding sat in bed, eyes wide with terror, staring at the same corner. "He's back," she whispered. "He's standing right there." I looked at the corner, my skin tingling with dread. It was empty, just like before. But this time, it felt different. The air in the room was thick and heavy, pressing down on me. I could feel something there, even if I couldn't see it. "I need to leave," Mrs. Harding said, her voice trembling. "I can't stay here." I nodded, trying to hide my own fear. "Let's go. I'll take you to the common room." I helped her out of bed, and we slowly moved down the hall. As we walked, I couldn't shake the feeling we were being watched, that something was following us. Each step felt heavier, like moving through an invisible fog. When we finally reached the common room, I sat her on a couch and stayed until she calmed. But even then, I kept glancing over my shoulder, expecting to see something in the shadows. I don't know what was happening in that care home, and I'm not sure I want to. But after that night, I couldn't make myself go back. I quit the next day, leaving whatever haunted Mrs. Harding's room behind. I just hope wherever she is now, she's found peace, because something was in that room with her. I'm certain of it, and whatever it was watching. My first night as a cleaner was in one of the city's biggest office buildings. I was grateful for the job, though I had no idea what to expect. The place was huge, endless cubicles, conference rooms, and hallways that seemed to stretch forever. Even after hours, it felt strangely alive. I'd always worked during the day, so getting used to the spooky quiet of a night shift was new. The other cleaners had been there for years and knew every inch. They mostly kept to themselves, which was fine by me. I didn't mind working alone. My supervisor, Carol, was the only one who really showed me around. She gave me keys and explained my areas. Most tasks were basic: vacuuming, emptying bins, wiping desks. I'd be alone on the 4th floor, while the others took the lower one. "Oh, and you might see Doug, the night janitor," she added before leaving. "Don't worry about him. He's harmless, just a bit odd. Let him do his thing." I didn't think much of it then. Everyone working nights seemed a little peculiar. I figured Doug would just be another quiet guy, cleaning, or fixing things on his own. But from the moment I met him, something felt wrong. He had this unsettling way of looking at you too long, too sharp, like he was studying every part of me for no reason. When he first came up to me, it was out of nowhere. I was wiping a table in a break room, turned around, and there he was in the doorway. "Hi there," he said, his lips smiling, but his eyes not. "First night, huh?" I tried to ignore the strangeness. "Yeah, just learning the ropes. Let me know if you need anything," he added, his stare steady. "I'm always around." That was an understatement. For the rest of the night, he was everywhere. Cleaning bathrooms, vacuuming carpets. Doug would be there, watching. I'd see him at the end of a hall, or just as I turned a corner, pushing his cleaning cart. Always watching. At first I thought it was a fluke. It was a big building, and we were the only two on the floor, but it happened too often to be a coincidence. And it wasn't just that he was nearby. He was always looking at me, as if waiting for me to notice him. The first few times, I forced a smile and a polite nod, then went back to work. But the more it happened, the more uneasy I felt. There's a limit to how many times you can catch someone staring before it feels wrong. At one point, I was in the kitchen, throwing out trash. When I turned around, Doug was standing just outside the door. I hadn't heard him enter or even approach. He was just there. "Need a hand?" he asked. I quickly shook my head. "No, I'm good, thanks." He didn't leave. He stood there for a long moment, staring, his fingers tapping on his mop handle. Finally he gave me that creepy grin again, and walked away without another word. I sighed with relief once he was gone, but the tension never truly left. I told myself I was overreacting, that it was my first night, and I was just paranoid. Night shifts could mess with your head, especially in a big empty place like this. But no matter how hard I tried to shake it off, the feeling of being watched kept creeping back. As my shift neared its end, I couldn't wait to leave. I checked the clock. 2:45 a.m. Just 15 more minutes. Then I'd be free. I started packing my things, wiping the last surfaces before heading to the exit. I didn't know where Doug was then, and frankly I didn't care. I just wanted to go home. As I walked toward the elevator, I noticed something odd. The stairwell doors were slightly open. I was sure they'd been closed earlier. I'd walked past them twice. A hint of doubt crossed my mind, but I ignored it and pressed the elevator button. Nothing. I pressed it again. Still nothing. Frustrated, I looked at the stairwell doors again, half expecting Doug to appear, but no one was there. The building was quiet, except for the faint hum of the air system. I sighed, accepting the stairs. It was only 4 floors down. As I pushed the door open, a faint scraping sound echoed from below. I froze, listening. It wasn't loud, but it was clear, like metal being dragged on concrete. I peered down the dimly lit steps, winding into darkness, but saw nothing. I shook my head and started down. Maybe Doug was working, or maybe I was just imagining things. Either way, I was done, and just wanted to get home. But as I reached the 2nd floor, I heard it again. This time it was louder. The scraping came from just below me. I froze on the landing, my heart pounding, and gripped the railing. I leaned over to look down the stairwell, and that's when I saw him. He was on the floor below, his back to me, holding a large metal object. It looked like a pipe or a crowbar. He wasn't moving, just standing there, facing the wall. I stepped back, trying to be quiet. My mind raced. Why was he just standing there? What was he holding? Without thinking, I turned and ran back up the stairs. My footsteps echoed as I sprinted to the 4th floor. I ran straight to the door and slammed it shut behind me. My breathing was fast and panicked. I looked around the empty hallway, my heart still racing. There was no way I was going back down those stairs with Doug lurking there. I needed to get out, and I needed to get out fast. I tried the elevator again, but it was still dead. My only hope was another stairwell, or an emergency exit. Then I realized something awful. Every exit I passed was locked. Panic began to set in. I tried to stay calm, to think clearly. Maybe there was another way out. A stairwell I'd missed. I just needed to focus, keep moving, and find an exit before Doug found me. I moved down the hall, trying to be as quiet as possible. Every door was locked, every stairwell blocked. It was like the whole building was trying to trap me. Just as I was about to give up, I saw an emergency exit at the far end. I ran toward it, praying it would be open. I pushed, and to my relief, it swung wide. I burst through, finding myself staring at a metal fire escape bolted to the side of the building. It clung to the wall like a lifeline, narrow, shaky, stretching 4 stories down to the street. My legs shook just thinking about climbing down that thin ladder, the sharp metal gleaming under the faint streetlights below. But I couldn't stay. The fear chasing me from inside was worse than looking down. I grabbed the railing, feeling the cold steel, and forced myself to take the first step. Each rung creaked beneath me, and my heart hammered with every movement, but I knew I had no other choice. When I reached the ground, gasping for air, I didn't stop running until I was halfway down the block. I finally stopped to catch my breath. I never went back to that building. The next day, I quit the job without explaining why. A few weeks later, I heard through office gossip that Doug had been fired for inappropriate behavior toward another staff member. I didn't ask for details. I didn't want to know. I had escaped that night, but it felt like Doug had planned for me not to. To this day, I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't made it out in time. I started at the law office on a cold Monday morning in November. You know that feeling when you begin a new job? The nerves, the excitement, the huge need to get everything right on day one. That was me, standing in front of this small, slightly rundown building that looked more like an old house than an office. I wasn't sure what kind of law firm it was. The ad hadn't given many details, just basic tasks and errands. But the pay was good, and I needed the money. Inside, the building felt as old as it looked. Faded wallpaper, maybe from the 70s, covered the walls, and the furniture seemed very old. There was a strong, musty smell, like the place hadn't been opened up in ages. "Welcome. You must be Tiana," a voice said from behind me. I turned to see a woman in her mid-50s in the hallway. Her name was Janet, the office manager, and she had a no-nonsense way about her that made you feel like you had to be careful. She didn't smile much, just looked at me as if she were checking me over. "Come on, I'll show you your desk," she said, turning and walking down the narrow hall. The office was small, only a few rooms. There was Janet's main office, and then a couple of others I guessed were for the lawyers. My desk was tucked into a back corner by a window that looked out onto an alley. It wasn't fancy, but I wasn't there to make friends or impress anyone. I just needed a paycheck. Janet quickly showed me what to do. My tasks were mostly answering calls, organizing old files, and running small errands. It was quiet work, a bit dull, honestly. Not many people came in or out, which seemed strange for a law firm, but I figured it was just a small-town place that didn't get many visitors. Around noon, I was settling in when Janet came to my desk. She held a large manila envelope. "See, I need you to take this to an address for me," she said, handing it over. "It's not far, just a quick drive. Leave it in the mailbox." "Sure," I replied, taking the envelope. There was no address on it, just my name written in black mark. I waited for more instructions, but she just stared at me. "Should I get a signature or anything?" I asked. "No, just drop it off. she said flatly, then turned and walked away before I could ask anything else. I grabbed my coat and headed for my car, feeling a bit confused but not worried. It was just an errand. But the more I thought about it, the stranger it seemed. Why not just use the postal service? And why was my name on the envelope? As I typed the address Janet gave me into my GPS, my stomach twisted. The location was on the edge of town, an area I didn't know. The drive took me down twisty back roads, past empty lots and decaying houses. It was a dark day, the sky cloudy, making the creepy surroundings even more unsettling. Finally, I reached the address. It was nothing like I expected. The place was an old, large building, falling apart. Windows were boarded up, and thick weeds and a rusty fence surrounded the property. No signs of life anywhere. No cars, no lights, just quiet decay. I sat in my car for a moment, gripping the steering wheel, wondering if I'd gone to the wrong place. I checked the address twice. It matched Janet's. This was it. Looking at the envelope again, a wave of unease washed over me. Why was I delivering something to this abandoned building? Still, I told myself it wasn't my place to ask. Maybe it was a legal matter, and the package was for the owner. Taking a deep breath, I got out of the car and walked to the front gate. The mailbox was old and rusty, barely hanging on. I slipped the envelope inside and was about to walk back to my car when I heard a creak. I froze, turning toward the sound. It came from an upstairs window, one of the few not boarded. I looked at the dark, cracked glass, but saw nothing at first. Then I noticed it, a shadow barely visible in the dim light. Someone was standing there, watching me from the second-floor window. My heart jumped into my throat. I quickly turned and rushed back to my car. As I fumbled with the keys, I looked up again, but the figure was gone. The window was empty, just a dark hole staring back. I started the car and sped away, my hands shaking on the wheel. Something wasn't right. I couldn't say what, but that place and whoever was watching me was not normal. When I got back to the office, Janet didn't even ask about the envelope. She just nodded when I walked in and went back to her work, as if nothing had happened. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about the figure in the window, how they just stood there, watching. I told myself it was probably nothing. Maybe someone was living there, and I'd scared them. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to it. The next day, things got even stranger. Janet handed me another envelope. This time, no explanation, no address, no instructions, just a quiet, "Take care of it." I didn't know what she meant, but I wasn't gonna argue. I took the envelope and got in my car, waiting for my GPS to guide me. It led me back to the same building. I paused as I pulled up to the rusty gate, the same dread washing over me, even stronger now. I told myself to just drop the envelope and leave quickly. No looking around, no curiosity. But as I walked to the gate, something caught my eye. The window, the same one where I'd seen the figure the day before, was now slightly open, as if someone had pried it loose. I could see a torn curtain blowing in the breeze. The building still looked abandoned, but something felt wrong about it, something I couldn't explain. I slipped the envelope into the mailbox and quickly turned to leave. But before I took 2 steps, I heard it again, a creak from the window. This time, I didn't look back. I ran to my car, flung the door open, and sped off without a second thought. When I got back to the office, Janet was waiting. She didn't say a word, just gave me that strange look, as if she knew a secret I didn't. I wanted to ask her about the building, about the person I'd seen, but something stopped me. Later that night, I couldn't stop thinking about the open window. Why was it closed before? And who was watching me? I called a friend who had lived in town for a long time and asked them about the building. After a long pause, they told me it had been empty for years. No one had lived there since a fire destroyed the inside a decade ago. It was unsafe and forbidden, and no one went near it. So who had I seen in that window? The next day, I went to work, dreading another task. But Janet didn't give me an envelope. Instead, she handed me a letter addressed to me. Inside was a single sentence: "Stop asking questions." I looked up at Janet,
but she was already walking away, her face as blank as ever. I quit the next day. To this day, I still don't know what was in those envelopes, who was watching me from the window, or how she knew I'd asked about the building. But sometimes, when I drive past the edge of town, I can't help but look toward that old building, half expecting to see someone standing there, watching me again. Whatever was happening in that law office, I wanted no part of it. It was my first day working at the bookstore, a charming little shop tucked into an old downtown building. From outside it looked like any other small business. Old brick, large windows full of paperbacks, and a faded sign swaying in the wind. I was excited. I loved books, and working here felt like a dream. It was a quiet job, with customers coming and going, and Mr. Langley, the owner, seemed kind enough. I arrived early that morning, wanting to make a good impression. Inside, the store had that classic old bookstore feel, the light smell of paper and ink, shelves packed with books from floor to ceiling, and a well-used wooden counter. Mr. Langley gave me a quick tour before going to his back office, leaving me to mind the front. The day started quietly. I arranged shelves, greeted a few customers, and learned where everything was. It was a peaceful, slow job, the kind where you could think while you worked. By afternoon, things got even quieter. I had nothing to do but read a book at the counter. That's when I noticed a door. It was small, almost hidden behind some boxes near the back, and I hadn't really seen it before. It was wooden, dark, and a bit worn, with a heavy padlock holding it shut. My curiosity got the best of me, and I walked over for a closer look. The door was solid, but it didn't seem to fit with the rest of the shop. Something about it felt wrong. I glanced around to make sure Mr. Langley wasn't watching, then knelt to examine it. The lock was old, rusted in spots, but strong. It seemed strange. Why would a simple bookstore need a locked door like this? What could be behind it? My mind went to hidden storage, a dusty cellar of rare books, or some forgotten part of the building. But something about it felt off. I wasn't sure why, but standing there made me uneasy, like I shouldn't. Just as I was about to leave, Mr. Langley appeared from the back. His eyes narrowed slightly when he saw me by the door. "That's locked for a reason," he said, his voice firmer than before. "There's nothing back there you need to worry about, just old storage." I nodded quickly, feeling a little ashamed for snooping. "Sorry, I was just curious." He gave me a tight smile. "Curiosity can be dangerous in a place like this." His words hung in the air, and I couldn't tell if he was joking or serious. Either way, I decided it was best to stay away from that door. I went back to the front of the shop and spent the rest of the afternoon arranging books, trying to shake off the strange feeling his comment had given me. As evening came, Mr. Langley approached the counter, his coat in hand. "I'm leaving for the day," he said. "You'll close up tonight. It should be very quiet. Just lock the front door and turn off the lights when you leave." I nodded, trying to hide my nervousness about being alone on my first day. "God." He left with a quick nod, and soon the shop was eerily silent, save for the faint creak of the old floorboards. I kept busy tidying up, trying to make the time pass until closing. But as the clock ticked and the last light of day faded, the bookstore's mood seemed to change. The air felt heavier, thicker somehow, and every small sound seemed louder than it should be. I told myself it was just first day nerves and kept working, but that uneasy feeling stayed with me. It wasn't long before I heard it, a soft thud, like something dropping from the back of the store. My heart skipped a beat as I listened closely. The sound came again, a little louder this time. It was coming from the direction of the locked door. I put down the books I was holding and carefully went to the closer I got, the more I realized the sound wasn't random. It was rhythmic. Thud, pause, thud, pause, like someone knocking from the other side. My mouth went dry as I stood before the door, staring at the rusty padlock. The knocking suddenly stopped, leaving only the soft hum of the overhead lights. I tried to tell myself it was nothing, just the old building or a draft. But then I heard it again, a faint whisper, barely audible, but clearly there, coming from behind the door. I couldn't make out the words, but the voice sounded weak, almost begging. My heart raced and every gut feeling told me to turn around. walk away and forget it. But I couldn't. I had to know. I reached for the padlock, expecting it to be freezing cold, but it felt normal, just a lock. I tugged it, testing its strength, but it didn't move. The door stayed tightly shut, and the whispers stopped. Taking a shaky breath, I stepped back, my mind racing. Was someone trapped back there? Or was I just imagining things? I wanted to believe the latter, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was truly wrong. I grabbed my phone and quickly texted Mr. Langley, asking if everything was okay, and mentioning the strange noises. He didn't reply right away, so I decided to finish my work and leave as soon as I could, but the noises didn't stop. As I put away the last few books, I heard another thud, followed by a scraping sound, like something heavy being dragged. This time it was louder, clear. The whispers came back too, though I still couldn't understand them. I looked at the time. Still another hour until closing. That's when Mr. Langley's text came through. All it said was, "Do not open the door." My stomach clenched and my hand shook as I reread the message. He hadn't explained why, hadn't given any details, just a direct, almost frantic warning. I stared at the door, my mind flooded with questions. If there was nothing back there, why such a message? Another thud, this time followed by a low groan, echoed from behind the door. My breath caught, and I found myself slowly backing away. I no longer cared what was making the noise. I just wanted to be out of that store. I rushed to the front, turning off the lights and grabbing my bag. But as I reached for the front door, a loud bang came from the back, as if something heavy had been thrown against the door, shaking the nearby shelves. I froze, then without warning, the padlock clicked. The sound was so quiet, so tiny, but I heard it perfectly. I turned around just in time to see the padlock slip from its clasp and fall to the floor with a metallic clang. I didn't wait to see what happened next. I ran out the door, down the street, not stopping until I was safe in my car with the doors locked. My hands trembled as I tried to understand what had just happened. I never went back to that bookstore. A week later, I heard it had closed down. No explanation, no announcement, just boarded up overnight. I never found out what was behind that door, and honestly, I don't want to. But sometimes late at night, when everything is quiet, I think about the whispers, about the way the door unlocked itself, and I wonder if, somewhere in that dark, forgotten place, the door is still waiting for someone else to open it and let out whatever is inside. If these first day job horror stories gave you shivers, please hit that like button and subscribe for more spooky tales. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you won't miss our next terrifying story. Which story scared you the most? Tell us in the comments below. I'd love to know. Stay safe and always trust your gut, especially on your first day. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next night.